What? Wheat. The bread basket, right? We think about Tornado Alley. We think about the bread basket. Wheat, corn, beans. Originally, this was really known as a bread basket and got the name from the wheat. As we've kind of moved into more modern farming, it's moving away from wheat and more towards corn. And not so much the corn we're going to be serving today, but more of what we think of, especially here, as that yellow dent corn or that field corn. So that corn is typically used more for livestock feed and even for ethanol fuel. So not as much as something that we would eat, but the largest amount of corn that's being produced is coming out of our Great Plains still today. It has roots that go way back to the indigenous folks of the day, all the way down, if you think about into Mexico, all the way down, you've got these cultures that are really fascinated and really centered around maize or corn, and it really is no different in our Great Plains region also. So our dish we're going to have for that today is going to be a skillet dish as well. That's going to be chicken with some corn, some bacon. The corn is going to serve also as our carbohydrate and our vegetables, so we have this full cohesive meal. And then, what do we think about with the Southwest? Spice, yeah, those warm spices especially, right? What else? Anything else come to mind? Yeah, tamales, yeah. We got that, the Spanish colonization of our American Southwest has really made a huge impact on the cuisine there. And so when Spain colonized the American Southwest region back in the 16th century or so, they would have brought with them a custard dish, which is very popular over in Spain. As it came into our area, it would have kind of met the Native Americans who were there at the time, and they would have introduced some of those warm spices to it, which is where we get our cinnamon. And then as the Anglos moved into the area, it continued to evolve. So what we have now, that original custard dish that came from Spain, is now called natilla, and it has a very cinnamony flavor, like a forward cinnamon flavor custard that is known in the Southwest. How many of you ever had natilla down in like maybe New Mexico or in that region? Have you? Yeah, it's delicious, right? Yeah, and it's got a very cinnamon flavor to it. But it's, you know, most cultures have some kind of a custard that they call their own. If you think about down in Mexico, they have flan, right? If you go over to Italy, what do they have? Tiramisu or creme brulee over in France. Like, you know, everybody's kind of got their own. So down in America's Southwest, we have natilla. It looks like Nutella, but it is natilla. And it's, again, the one that you're going to find in our America Southwest, as opposed to like Colombia or some others that also have their own version. These are going to be served, like in Colombia, they serve it in squares. They make the custard, they pour it out into large pans, and they cut it, they chill it, cut it into squares after it sets up, and you can eat it almost like a bar. The natilla of American Southwest is going to be more softer, not as dense, more pillowy, and so it's going to be poured out into individual servings and then typically eaten. Or you could share a serving with someone, it doesn't have to be individual. But so I'm going to talk you through the process because it does take a while, and normally it's going to be served anywhere from, you know, warm, but it has to set up, a warm, room temperature chilled. I wanted to make sure everybody got some of that today, so I'm making those up ahead of time. So I'm going to talk you through that process. So for this particular dish or this particular menu, I would actually start with dessert because we need to prep that first, right? And there's nothing wrong with starting with dessert. So, all right, so we're going to go back over here. There we go, to our spice natilla. So for this particular recipe, if you look at that, it really is a traditional custard. So you will have your milk, you've got your egg yolk, those are going to be our wet ingredients, and then you've got your dry ingredients of cornstarch, flour, this is not supposed to be on there, cornstarch, flour, sugar, vanilla, and cinnamon. And for when I'm making this myself, I take all my dry ingredients and mix them together. It doesn't have to be done that way. So I'll take the sugar, and then take the cornstarch. The cornstarch is going to help it set up, and also the egg yolk will too. Our salt, our cinnamon. Okay. And then I'm just going to give that a little stir. Okay. So that it's just evenly combined. It just makes it a little bit easier. Then I will take the milk. I'm just going to talk you through the process and go ahead and heat it up in a pan. You don't want it to boil, right? We're not going to try to curdle that milk or separate it. So we're just going to get it to its steaming, about 180 degrees. You're going to see the steam come up, and that's going to be the time that you're going to go ahead. We'll add our egg yolk into our dry ingredients. Give it a good stir so it all comes together. The only thing we're going to hold off on adding is the vanilla. We'll just do that at the end. Since most vanilla has some alcohol in it, we don't want to cook it out, so we're just going to add it in at the end. So we'd mix all this together, and then when our milk is steaming, we'll take a little bit of that steaming milk and add it into the yolk to temper the yolk so that the yolk doesn't cook. If we add that egg yolk directly into that hot milk, it's going to cook that egg, right? How many of you have done that before? Oh, I've done it. We all have. If you've made custard, you've done it. It's fine. And then you got to find something to strain it out and start all over. So what you want to do is just make sure you temper it. Take a little bit of that warm milk, add it into the egg yolk to temper the egg yolk, and then you can pour all of this directly in. You're going to stir this continually. Do not let it set. Continually stir on a medium heat until it gets nice and thick. And you're looking for a term with the French cuisine, we call it nappe, which means if you would dip a spoon or something into it, it's going to coat it. Okay? So if it coats the back of the spoon, that's about the texture that you want or the thickness you want. And you're going to pull it on off. Let it sit for a couple minutes just so it's safer to handle, and then you can pour it into your individual serving containers. And that's what I've done here. So everybody can get a little natilla today, okay? If you like, you can go ahead and add a little bit of cinnamon on top. As I said, when you're adding that, don't forget to put your vanilla in at the end before you pour it out. And then you can, if you want, after you've gone ahead and poured it in the containers, you can add some cinnamon on top if you like to. There's no need, it's ready to go at that point. You can eat it warm, you can eat it room temperature, you can eat it cold. And really in the Southwest tradition, all of the above are correct. Any questions on the natilla? I have not, okay. but like I would try it for sure. Just like with most custards, you can definitely make a one that isn't.
Coconut over almond, right? Because it's more fat.
Yeah, I would definitely want the fat. What you've got. I take that back. You may not need to worry about the fat content because you've got the egg yolk and you have the cornstarch, which is going to help let it set up. So you probably don't need to worry about the fat so much. Just get a good non-dairy milk that you like the taste of, because obviously it's going to play a huge part in it. So yeah, yeah.
How long is it stable in the refrigerator? How many days?
We say 7 days, like for food safety, but you're going to find about 2 to 3 is going to be optimal. Then it is going to start to get a little water on top. Yeah, but you can make it ahead of time for sure and hold it. Yeah. Nappe. Yeah, N-A-P-E, or maybe 2 P's. N-A-P-P-E. Any French majors in here? N-A-P-P-E? I can't remember if it's 2 P's or 1, but it's nappe. A little accent on the end, yeah. Okay. All right, any other questions on the natilla? Yeah? Yes? Nope, just pour it off, yep. Just the cinnamon, yep. Yeah, this one's not been baked at all. Yeah. So very simple, fantastic flavor. It's very forward with the cinnamon and the vanilla, of course, too. So, and as I said, we'll have a little sample of that for everybody later, okay? All right, now we're going to go ahead and move into our first course, though, because we're assuming that our natilla is sitting and ready to go. So we're going to look ahead at our mushroom skillet. Okay. What's fun about these next 2 dishes is that you can serve them directly out of a skillet. If you have a pretty skillet, especially a cast iron skillet that you like to work with, you can do that. If you don't have a cast iron skillet, you don't have to use a cast iron skillet. You can use whatever skillet you have. It can be Teflon, non-Teflon. These are very forgiving dishes. Just find what works best for you. You can make it a one-pot meal by eating directly out of it. I'm all for that, especially when it's just me. So kind of keep that in mind too. It plates beautifully right inside the skillet though, with a little bit of crumbled blue cheese and some thyme on top here. But as I said, today we're going to do some crusty bread, and we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of that goat cheese on top of it. Okay, so let's turn our gears here. All right. Okay, so with mushrooms, a couple things to keep in mind, and I know we talked about this extensively last time when I was here. In order to get things to brown, we have to get rid of the water. So we know mushrooms have quite a bit of water in them. So we're going to have to make sure that we cook out that water before we can get any real browning to take place. Anybody remember what that term was for that? Why? Maillard reaction, does anybody remember that? We have to get about 300 degrees in order to be able to get something to brown. And if it's got water in it, it's going to stop to release that water, and that's going to hold there at about 212 degrees or so in that area while it's trying to get rid of that water, because that's the temperature for boiling. So in order to really get up to that 300 degrees, we really have to get rid of that water first. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. Sure cooperates with us here. Okay, so I put enough, I think in the recipe it says a couple tablespoons, but you really want enough oil to coat the bottom of the pan. That's really all you're looking for. You don't need much more than that. We don't want it swimming in oil. We have a couple different kinds of mushrooms, again, kind of an ode to the Rocky Mountains. I have actually some shiitakes. I also have some porcinos, and I have, or not porcinis, but cremini, and I also have some baby bellas in here too, so kind of a mix. Whatever your favorite mushroom is, this dish will work with for sure. I also have a shallot. I always think of shallots as kind of like if a piece of garlic and maybe an onion got together and had a baby. That would be a shallot. So we're going to work, we have him there. We've got some garlic cloves and also some fresh thyme. Okay. This is optional. Okay, so I trained at French at Le Cordon Bleu, right? So we do like our butter, and so it's always optional to mount something with butter at the end, which just adds a little bit of cream back into something. So this is totally optional, but I did bring it because, again, it's always my option. So, and then we have some goat cheese, and we have some crusty bread. So with the crusty bread, you can do it so many different things with it in so many different ways. Make sure that's getting nice and warm, as it is. Whoops, there we go. Okay. While this is heating up, we're going to go ahead and we'll talk about our bread, and then we're also going to work on our shallot here. So I'm going to keep the root end together, which is this end here. I'm not going to cut through that. I'm just going to cut lengthways through so that this root's going to hold this together. I'm going to give it a quick peel. I'll turn this off while it's doing that. This fire was fast. It's a small pan. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing here. Just peel that off. Let that root kind of hold all these pieces together so they don't come apart. You can see what's happening. I'll get rid of the skins. Okay, and then same technique for slicing an onion we're going to use for slicing the shallot. So I'm going to slice it this way. I'm just going to run my knife through horizontally a couple times. Like this. You can see those cuts in there. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to cut it this direction now. But I'm not cutting through the root. I'm leaving the root intact. Now I've got cuts going this way and this way. Now I'm going to run my knife this way, and it's just going to go ahead and dice it for me. The whole time that root end is holding everything together so I don't have to fight all those layers. All the little pieces we've got, okay? Same technique we use when we're dicing an actual onion too. So first things first, I'm going to come back through again this direction. There we go, one cut up towards the root, but I'm not going to slice through the root, keeping it intact. Then I'm going to come back this way to the root, but not through it. There we go. And then I'm going to come back again. And the root is holding everything together so I don't have to fight it. And there we go. And that root did all the work. And I can just get rid of that little end, or I could cut it through if I wanted to. Okay, now go ahead and add these right on in. There we go. Okay, let me turn this back on. Hear it? It's going. Okay, and then we also have our garlic. Lots of different ideas on how to cut garlic, but I'm not too concerned about knife cuts with this, so I'm just going to peel it. And then I'm just going to rough chop it real quick and add it in. So we've got some garlic and we've got some shallot in there together. Get rid of my skin. layer. And again, I'm just going to give it, so it's about the same size, just rough chopping. Doesn't have to be too small. I don't want it too big either, so. Okay, I'm happy with that. Add that on in. So if you didn't have a shallot, you could just use an onion, right? And it's a little bit more garlic. Okay, once this becomes fragrant, which it is, I can smell it, I'm going to go ahead and add in my mushrooms. It's going to look like a lot of mushrooms until they start to cook down, then it's going to look like no mushrooms. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and add just a little bit more oil. And typically when you add oil, do it around the edges. It'll run into the pan that way. The other thing is we're going to go ahead and season all the way through. So rather than waiting to the very end to add in your salt or pepper, whatever else you might be adding spices and things to a dish, it's always good to salt at the minimum all the way through the dish so that every layer tastes good. And that's how you kind of start to build layers as well of flavor. So I've already measured out my salt ahead of time, so I don't have to worry about over salting, but I'm going to go ahead and just add some in. And mushrooms, they will soak up a lot of oil and they will soak up a lot of salt too. So, okay, while those are cooking down, I'm going to wait and add these in last because they're much smaller. You can look at our bread over here. So, I've got these nice, real dense, crusty pieces of bread. Clean cutting board out. There we go. And I'm just going to go ahead. I could, if we had more time, I would probably put this back on either the skillet and just kind of get some browning, or I'd stick it maybe in the broiler and get it nice and brown on the inside. But just for sake of time today, I'm just going to go ahead and put on a little bit of goat cheese on these layers. Do this while the mushrooms are cooking. One more over here. All right. And then get out of these wood platters we used last time as well, but they work well for something like this too. I could use the ends if I wanted, but I don't want to, so there we go. All right. What's that? Yeah, so depending on the mushroom itself, there's lots of different, lots of varieties of mushrooms. There's really not a one size fits all even for cleaning them. But there's lots of different theories about it. So the large cap, like the portobellos, which are the real large caps, when you flip those over, they have all the little black, I can't think of the names more, they're like fluted on the inside. They're kind of messy. Depending on what you're going to do with those, a lot of times you'll remove that ahead of time. The stem itself can be real woody and fibrous with certain varieties, so sometimes you might want to remove the stem, but removing the stem also removes the yield. So sometimes, if you like the taste of the stem, you might want to leave it on. I also kind of like the look. I like the visual look of the stem on this one, so I left them a little bit longer just because I like the looks of that. They hold water, so it's best if you're going, when you go to rinse them and clean them, to do it right before you use them. You don't want to rinse them and let them sit in your refrigerator because they'll start to break down really quick that way. So definitely, it's one of those things you're going to do right before you use. Kind of like berries, the same thing. If you've ever noticed, like strawberries, blackberries, you don't want to rinse those too far in advance because it just really diminishes their life. Okay, we're going to go ahead and add those in there. And then like oyster mushrooms and some of the other ones that are out there, you can almost eat all of it. You just want to make sure that, that you really generously wash it under the water. They grow in the ground, so there's going to be soil potentially on there. So you want to make sure that things get rinsed really, really well. Oops, we lost a mushroom. There we go. Okay, don't let those cook. Can you smell it? Yes? All right. Now this particular dish you could add, if you wanted, you could add in some white wine at the end and let that cook out. You could add in a little bit of Marsala wine, which is really wonderful with mushrooms. You could do that too. You could add in just a little bit of cream if you wanted to be a creamy version of the same dish. It's just very versatile, and you can do lots of different things with this dish. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and add in some more of those salt. I think I probably need just a little bit more oil again. And depending on what your preference is, I like my mushrooms to be, I don't like them to be too dry that there's nothing left to them, but I definitely want them to be cooked. So we're going to let these cook a little bit longer. Ideally, I'd have a bigger pan, but my fire's not big enough for a bigger pan, so we're kind of limited. Yeah, you want to get that, make contact with the surface of the pan there. And one thing about browning, if you continue to stir it like a stir fry, the more you stir something, the less it's going to come in contact with the pan and less browning is going to happen. So if you want to brown it, put the stirring utensil down and just be patient, and it will brown all on its own. But if you start stirring, you're going to lose that. Yeah?
What kind of oil is
This is an olive oil. Yeah, but you could use canola oil, you could use olive oil, you could use whatever oil that you like. But this is a nice oil for cooking. Oh, there we go. Now we're getting some good color. There we go. Be patient for another minute here, and then we'll be good. Okay, while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and add in a little bit of thyme. Thyme with mushrooms is another classic kind of combination. We'll add those in. There you go. Just a pinch of pepper. I'm a white pepper fanatic, but today I've got black pepper. Add a little bit of that. So this particular, as I said, it's very versatile. So your recipe is kind of a roadmap. You can go over where you want, though, just kind of, the direction you're headed. But if you follow it, you'll have a fantastic dish, but you can deviate without having really concern. There's a lot that you can do with this recipe. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. We could put parsley, we could do chives, we could do all sorts of different kinds of things. Okay, I am going to go ahead and give it just a little taste. I want to make sure that the seasoning, the salt and the thyme, the pepper is in good balance with the mushrooms. And the mushrooms, really do require quite a bit of seasoning. That's good. We'll leave it just there. Okay. You could serve this, as we said, right out of the skillet with your bread on the side. But for us, I'm just going to serve it right over the top. I don't want to cover up all of the bread because I want some of that cheese to show through just so you have that contrasting color. I'll probably put some more in the middle. These mushrooms will hold once they've been cooked in your fridge for quite a while too. So if you wanted to add them into another dish later or reheat them, you definitely can. Here we go. Okay. We have a stray mushroom here. And then as far as for garnishes, I think garnish should be kind of a clue as to what's to come. You wouldn't want to stick something completely unrelated to your dish on here just for the sake of eye appeal. So I'm going to go ahead and add just some fresh thyme, some sprigs. I think that's pretty. It's also kind of a clue that, hey, there's some thyme in here. If I can get a pretty one here. There we go. And remember, a garnish, one of the biggest reasons for garnishing is eye appeal. So if your garnish isn't pretty, don't use it. Okay, if you've got it. If it's not a good piece, do not use it. All right. And I do have a little bit. I wouldn't do it now, but because this is going to sit. But right before I would serve, I have some microgreens I could add on top of that too. Okay. Okay. So this is. I did not add the butter for everyone, just so that you know. I withheld. Yeah. All right. And there is our mushroom skillet over bread with goat cheese. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So that would be our first course. You could serve it, again, with your entree, or you could serve it in a course, as we're doing here. All right? Any questions? Yeah?
You had mentioned white pepper versus
Yeah.
black. What do you like about white pepper?
Okay, so in the French tradition, it has a little bit different flavor profile. It's a little bit spicier, but it's also cleaner. And also from a visual standpoint, it is much cleaner in your dish. So depending on what I'm making, if it's a white sauce, if I'm going to use cream or butter or something in it, I don't want little black specks often, because especially if I'm cooking for somebody else, they might not know what those little black specks are, and I don't want them to have to worry about what they are. So I will not use black pepper, I'll use white pepper, because it more evenly distributes through the dish. It disappears. There's no question of what that little black thing was. Yeah, that's one of the big reasons. I also just prefer the flavor of white pepper over black. Yeah, but there's really just kind of a preference. So, and I know I'm a little neurotic when it comes to some things, and that's okay. It's all right. I'm okay with that. Okay, I'm actually going to go ahead and use the same skillet. I'm just going to wipe out a little bit of the onion that was left over in here. Just don't want it to burn. Okay, we're going to move on to our chicken dish, which is absolutely delicious. So this is going to be our chicken skillet. Let me reset some things here. When we're cooking chicken, I know I talked about this last time, but just as a refresher, what temperature are we looking for chicken to know it's safe to eat? 165. If you don't think of it or remember anything else today, remember that particular number. That one is very important. Chicken's the only dish that we do not eat, that we can't eat and should never eat undercooked. We have fish we can eat undercooked. We have beef we can eat undercooked. We have pork that we can eat now at 155, which is undercooked. When it comes to poultry, cook it, okay? don't try to do something other than cook it all the way through. And again, 165 is safe for that. So for this particular dish, my oil is going to come from bacon, okay? And because we are, let's flip my slide here. Because we are talking about our Great Plains area at this point with this particular dish is what we're highlighting. We're going to use bacon because pork is one of those things that we think about with livestock and we think about in the Great Plains. So I've gone ahead and pre-cut my bacon. I left one piece this way just so you could see. What I've done is I've cut cross sections of it. Those are called lardons. So I've cut little pieces so that I just had my whole pack. I laid it all out as one pack and I cut sections of it this way. Okay? I'm going to cut these or cook this off ahead of time. So I'm going to put this in my dish. Turn this back on. So we'll use the fat from the bacon. We're going to render that fat out, and that'll be the oil that we have. Okay. And it's much easier to cut lardons when your bacon is cold, and it's really easy to do it when it's in a big old chunk. But when you get warm little slices, it's harder to do it. There we go. Okay. I'll kind of knock those apart. I have the smell of bacon here in just a moment. I've often thought, and I'm sure somebody has, because I know I've seen them around, but I don't know why it's not more popular, that there should be candles that smell like bacon, shallots, sweet corn. I mean, come on. Someone's got to do it, right? Veal stock. I mean, there are some things that smell fantastic, people. Yes, and they should be in a candle. After we were here last time, I had people stopping me and saying, "What were you cooking? It smelled so good." I was like, "It was huli chicken, huli chicken." So maybe we need a huli chicken candle. I don't know, something. There we go. All right. So I'm going to cook this out about 80% of the way. So I want that fat. It's really what I'm looking for, because I'm going to cook the bacon in the fat then. Okay. While that's cooking, I'm going to clean this up a little bit again. I went ahead and cooked off some chicken before I left today too, so we have plenty for everybody. I've also thought about the garnish and how I want to lay this dish out. So I've gone ahead and pre-cut some pieces of my corn, some little sections, so I can use that as garnish. When I'm teaching culinary arts to young chefs, we always have a garnish pot. So as you're cooking, you're going to lay things off to the side that look pretty. Maybe that piece of thyme that looked really, really nice, or that basil that was just about to bud, or maybe it's, a little piece of bacon that had a little curl on it, whatever it might be. We pull those off and make a garnish pot. We set that off to the side, so that when it comes time to garnish, I've got all these things. I don't know how I'm going to use them. I don't always know that, but now I have options. So I've got a few options already. I've got my green onion, I've got some chives, I have the thyme, if I can find it, here we got our thyme. We've got some microgreens, I've got my cross sections of corn. So when it comes time to garnish, we have things to play with and some ideas. This is my little garnish dish over here that I'm working on. It's more of a pan than it is a pot today. All right, we're going to have a nice amount of fat here to work with. This is not a low-calorie dish, okay? That's okay. Get it clean. All right, so we have the onion. Remember the technique we just used for the shallot? We're going to use the same one. So this root end, we're not going to cut through it, or cut it off, I shouldn't say. We're going to cut through it just a lengthways, cut through it first, like so. And that root ball is going to hold everything together. Let me come back here with my bacon real quick so it doesn't burn on me. And I probably have more bacon grease than I'm going to need, so I'm going to pour some of the fat out too, because I don't want it to be swimming. And regardless of what kind of fat it is, I don't want it to be swimming in that. Okay, I'm just going to turn this off for a moment, let that finish, and we'll cut our onion. So just like we did the shallot, I'm going to go ahead and peel it. And to make things a little bit easier, I'm just going to nip this end off first, and then I can come back and peel out that outer layer off. Does anybody have real sensitive eyes with onions? Do you? Have you found any tricks? The goggles, yes, they have goggles, and they do work, actually. Yeah. Anybody else have tricks? It's supposed to help? What do you do with the silver spoon? Oh, not by your eyes or anything? Oh. Okay, I'm going to try that. I've never heard that option. All right. Yeah. You could, definitely. This is a silicone spatula, and it's a Teflon pan, so I'm just being careful I don't scratch it, but wood would be fine. And wood would truly be better, because I'm trying to get away from plastics in the kitchen as much as possible. So wood would be a good option. Yeah. Any other options or any other tricks on how to kind of manage the eye issues with onions? Anybody else have any? Yep, doing underwater, that's another one. If they're cold, if you keep your onions cold, that does help a little bit. And ladies, if you wear mascara or contacts, I would put your mascara on afterwards, because the acid, or not the acid, but the gases collect to your little lashes. Who would have thought? So if you literally don't wear your mascara till you're done, that helps. Contacts also really will play into it as well. But keeping them cold is always a good thing. Okay. So we're going to go this way first, and then I'm going to come back, turning my knife 90 degrees from the original cut. This is not a good knife. There we go. Take that off. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to come back this way, and we'll have our diced cuts. Pull out that bacon. And actually, I think I'm just going to pour it out, because as I said, we've got more bacon grease in here than we need. And we're going to pull all the bacon out. We're going to reserve this, and we'll come back to it. We're going to add this back in later. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of the fat in there. Just enough, again, to cover the bottom of the pan. Now, okay, so for our chicken, I have boneless, skinless chicken thighs that we're using. You do want to make sure that you season them pretty well, and I'm going to show you what that looks like, because a lot of people are always afraid of how much, it's just got some onion on there, of how much seasoning they should use. So I'm going to go ahead and lay these out. All right. Oh, I can smell it already. Now remember, bacon has some natural salt in there, right? So I'm not going to over-salt the chicken, because as it cooks, it's going to pull in some of that bacon flavor and some of that salt. Yeah?
Back to the onion just a minute.
Yeah.
So if you were only going to use half the onion,
Yeah.
storage techniques will save the rest of that onion.
Yeah.
Good down the road.
Just get the air off of it. So try to put it in plastic wrap or a foil bag, something that you can try to seal and grab as much of the air out of as possible. And that's the best way to do it. But they'll hold for quite a while. Sometimes you have to come back and maybe just nip the edge off that you already cut into, but you can hold that onion for quite a bit of time. Yeah. Okay.
The other technique for having the problem with the onions,
Yeah.
the onions is let your spouse do it.
Especially if they don't have a problem, right? That's a good one too. Foolproof. We're going to put a little bit of pepper, but not a crazy amount. Okay, and I'm starting to turn that down. Okay, and as soon as I get this in here, it's going to go crazy. There we go. Okay, so you want to make sure that it's a generous amount, but not a crazy amount, but a nice amount that you've covered all of it. Oh, this is so messy. There you go. What's that? I put the side down. We call that the beauty side. Put that side down first, and then once it's down, then I can add some more salt in. Yeah, just kind of. I'll do it right now, actually. And if you do hold it higher, you'll be able to get a little bit more even distribution, but you still need to watch where it's going, right? You got to kind of see. That's one reason that you'll find that a lot of chefs like the coarse salt, because we can see it. I can literally see how much is there. It also will kind of melt into the dish a little bit better, and so we like that coarse salt for that reason. Okay, we're gonna let that brown on that side. I'm going to go ahead and back and cut this other half of the onion. So again, I'm going to slice this way first. To the root, but not through it. To the root, but not through it. To the root, but not through it. Same thing. And then come back. And then that root ball just does all the work for you. Okay. I'm going to let that chicken brown a little bit. We've got our onion already diced. The other thing I'm going to use some corn right off the cob. So little known fact, my parents, growing up, I grew up next door to my grandpa's dairy. And my uncles and my dad farmed the dairy for a lot of years, and eventually somebody else came in and farmed. And we had a small amount of land. I think it was about 200 acres, so not that small, but a small amount of the land that they decided to raise sweet corn on. And my uncles and my dad maintained that and kept that as kind of a boutique crop for us. So we supplied most of Knox County and down towards Coshocton County with sweet corn here in Ohio for a number of years. And when I was growing up, my dad, we were all farmers. My dad was a farmer, of course, but growing up, we planted this corn, and then my 2 older brothers and I became our summer job to maintain the sweet corn field. Now, we did not hoe 200 acres by hand, I promise you, but we did have a small area that was probably about an acre that we actually were expected to hand hoe, and we did. We'd go out and we would hand hoe that, and then we would have to pick that, and then we would load it in the back of the truck, and we'd take it down the end of the road, and I was too young to probably be there, quite honestly, but they would put a little sign out and leave me with the sweet corn all day, and I would sell it for like a quarter for a dozen or something. And at the end of the summer, though, my brothers and I would always have a couple $100, and it was like we were so rich. Like, wow. But I was probably like 6 or 7, and then my parents allowed that every year just to kind of be a thing for us kids, and it was like our summer job. And quite honestly, it was one of the best things ever. And I have so much love and affection for sweet corn because of that today. So I still love sweet corn. I love all the different varieties, but I do love a good bicolor corn like this one here. And my favorite is probably the Silver Queen, which is the white, and that's what we had a lot of at home. So I'm going to go ahead and take this right on off. It's going to be messy. I don't have a good way of doing it here. Normally, I would have a large like sheet tray, and you can do it inside the sheet tray, and with the edge around it, it kind of helps as the corn kind of pops around a little bit to kind of try to hold on to it. Here, it's just going to pop. It's just going to pop away, okay? That's all right. So I'm just going to slide my knife down along the side here and just take it right off. There's nothing better than fresh sweet corn, though.
Is all corn on the cob sweet corn?
No, yeah. So what's being grown out right now in like Iowa, Nebraska, and kind of the Great Plains area is more of that yellow dent corn, which is more of a field corn that's used for livestock. It can be eaten by humans, but it doesn't have that sweet flavor. It's just harder. It's not popping as bad as I thought it might. I'm doing all right. I will make sweet corn pudding, I make sweet corn soup, I make sweet corn chowders. We would have sweet corn with just a salad and some iced tea during the summer, and that was lunch. And I still love that to this day. So, all right. I think that's good. You can, of course, just use out of a can if you prefer, or if that's what you have on hand. You don't have to have fresh corn. Of course, this time of year when we get this sweet corn, though, this is a great dish for that. Okay, what I'm looking for is I really want that, we call it GBD, golden brown and delicious color, okay? We want that literally that brown color has flavor. It has texture, it has aroma, it has things that are almost mystical about it, and you want it. Okay. I'm gonna add in some thyme, just right into the dish like that. Now, I have a big enough pan that I can go ahead and add in some of the other elements, which is like the onion. If I didn't have a big enough pan, I wouldn't do that. I would just kind of wait. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and add it in. And you can see I'm not overcrowding. I have plenty of space in there yet to do that. I do want it to make contact with the pan, so I'm going to make sure it gets right in there, not so much on the chicken, but on the pan itself, or in the pan. You can use a garlic paste. I love this stuff, quite honestly. I like it better than the minced garlic that's out these days. But you can use fresh garlic, or you can use like a paste in place of it, which I'm going to do that here. Now they have, and the same thing, I just saw they have a lemon zest paste. Haven't tried it yet, but I bought it. You might see it here in Lakeside for some reason. But I love lemon zest, but they have it as a paste now too, so who the thunk. I do. I don't like the pre-minced stuff as much. I mean, I'll use it, don't get me wrong. But I really like this stuff here. I really do. For one, it kind of melts right away. It's just kind of gone. Add a little oil in there for the onions. Oh, I could have used my bacon fat, but we'll come back to that. Out of habit, I grabbed the olive oil. So we want those onions to become translucent and slightly browned before I move too much further. Because I want those to cook down a little bit. Okay. And they're almost translucent. They're starting to go from that real white to kind of where I can almost see through them. In the meantime, the chicken's still over here cooking, which is good. I have my handy-dandy thermometer, which if you don't have one, I'd always suggest having a thermometer. Here we go. Yes, there's lots of methods you can use, but this one is always foolproof. We're 145, so we're getting there. And when you're checking, you always want to check the fattest part, and you want to check more than one piece and in more than one place. Let's see what this says. 166, so we're getting there. We're going to let those go just a little bit longer. And then I'll take out the chicken, and I'm going to add in my corn at that point. Let's check this one. This is my fat one right here. 146, see? So we want to let it go just a little bit longer. Smell good? Yeah? All right. Go ahead and add. I'm going to put these all back in here in just a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and finish off the onions, a little bit of garlic that we have in there. So there's something happening too from the chicken. It's kind of little pieces that are stuck on the bottom of the pan, right? Anybody know what those are called? What is it? The little brown bits? Yeah, the French call it fond, F-O-N-D. So it's actually desirable. You want those little brown bits in there, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to let them sit there. They're going to continue to cook on the bottom of the pan pretty much. I'm going to add in my corn. And then eventually I'm going to deglaze the pan by adding in some stock. I've got some chicken stock over here. You can deglaze the pan with any kind of liquid. But the great thing about deglazing is it actually releases all those little brown bits into your sauce. It gives the sauce body, it gives it flavor. So we like that fond, we like it. And we all know sweet corn doesn't take very long to cook, so we're just gonna let this kind of cook down with those onions. Got the thyme in there also. I'm gonna go ahead and add in those pieces that I cut as well ahead of time so that they're cooked off. I'm going to let them make contact on the bottom of the pan just so that I know they get some color. Oh my gosh, I have so many. So when the kids were little, we did the cooler cob. You know what that is? Like you get a cooler out and you put the corn in there and then you dump hot water on it and shut the cooler. And you can take it wherever you want during the day. So then you have cooler cob, it's ready to go whenever. Microwave works pretty darn good when you're in a hurry, and if you need to add some corn into a dish, you can microwave an ear of corn. Of course, boiling is always good. The biggest thing is I like to make sure that the corn itself is a slightly, I want to say under, what's the word? Like it's not too mature. I like it to be slightly immature so that when you push your thumbnail into it, it pops. Those little things pop at you so that it's not dried out. I love a good ear of corn. I really do. But yeah, there's so many different ways. Sometimes, I'll admit, even with, depending on the corn itself, if it's not my parents' corn, because they're always so sweet, sometimes I'll add in a little bit of water or a little bit of sugar into the water when you boil it, and that kind of adds some sweetness back into it. If you get corn that's old or just not as sweet, I mean, it's what it is. But you can add, or you can add a little bit of sugar into your butter, and then as you drizzle your butter, you have a little bit of sweetness there with it. Did anybody else, oh, sorry, just threw corn at you. Anybody else have any ideas or ways of cooking corn that I haven't mentioned? On the grill? Yeah? Yeah. That's, it goes all over the place, Dada. That's a great idea. Okay. Oops. I lost an onion. What's that? Yeah, well, you don't have to, but yeah, I shuck it first and then put it right into the cooler, and then just get your hot water from a tea kettle or something and pour it on in there, and then just shut the cooler. It'll stay like that for hours. And it's not, yeah, you can take it camping or take it to a bonfire or whatever it might be. Swim meets, yeah, whatever it is. So I normally just take a dish, and I'll put a little bit of water on the dish, and then just put the corn right in there and stick it in the microwave. Until it turns bright yellow, but a couple minutes maybe, depending on how many ears you have. Yeah, it's, I mean, it's so easy. Huh? I do. Elotes, I think is what it's called. I do love that. I was just at Otaco last night in Sandusky, and I had some. And they serve it hot or cold, which I kind of like. And we did something here. We did a sweet corn. I did a sweet corn demo here probably 2 summers ago, I think, and did like a buffalo style and then a Parmesan and garlic, and just like kind of played around with all of them. If I haven't mentioned it yet, I really like sweet corn. Just if anybody is curious, yeah, it's one of my favorites. Yeah, I come by it honestly. So now you can see. I'll show you here. Some of those little pieces I put in there are starting to get that GBD, got that golden brown delicious thing going on. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of our stock in there to deglaze the pan. And you can't really see, but you probably, if I show you, maybe you can see a little bit. There's the pieces of the shallot or the onion, a little bit of that garlic, some of the bacon. It's just kind of stuck to the bottom of the pan. And the sweetness from the corn's kind of doing the same thing. So as I add in a little bit of the liquid, again, it's going to release that fond, or those little bits, as you said, from the bottom of the pan. And all those little bits are going to cook right off, and they're going to release right into what we now have as kind of a sauce. That steam's going to help finish cooking off that corn. Add a little bit more in there. Now you can use butter. You can also use cream if you like. You can add that in too to make make it a little saucier. I'm going to go and pull out my 2 pieces of thyme that are in there. All right, and I think I've got pretty good. We're going to go ahead and add that chicken back in, along with the bacon. And as I said, this makes a great dish that you can serve right in your skillet, especially if you have a cast iron skillet. Cooked off more chicken earlier, so we're just going to add all that right on in there. Going to let that corn come up on top a little bit. Now, if I wanted, I could cover it at this point even, just so I don't lose too much of my stock's going to continue to cook out of there, and I don't want to lose too much of the liquid. I could cover it. Pieces. These are newer pieces of thyme. We're going to add those in there, and some bacon. There we go. And then we have our bacon we cooked earlier. I'm going to just do the bacon without the fat. I don't want all that fat in there. And let all that cook just for a moment together. Let all those flavors and that chicken kind of come together. Can you smell it back there? Yeah? Okay. All right, get those onions in there. I think I'll go ahead and add in the rest of the stock just because it's steaming pretty good. All right. And I think for this particular one, we will go ahead and add in a little bit of butter, just so that our sauce has a little bit more body to it. We could add cream, but the cream will change the color of everything too, kind of keep that in mind. And I kind of like these bright colors. And I don't necessarily need the flavor of the cream, so I'm just going to use a little bit of butter instead. And again, this technique is just called mounting. There we go. And we're just going to add that in, and then I'll turn the pan off, so it just kind of melts into the dish. Again, I said this is not a low-calorie dish, right? I did mention that at the beginning, right? But you've got your bacon, you've got the corn with the butter, which is fantastic, because who doesn't want butter on their corn? All that kind of melt in there together. Yum! All right, we'll let that sit there for just a moment. Okay. Let's see if there's any questions on the chicken?
The tongs, I always get paranoid. I'm like, I use these for the raw chicken. Does it eventually cook back off if you keep cooking with the same pair? Or is it better to switch them?
I'd switch them if you can, yeah. Try to. I get a little paranoid too. I just don't want anyone to ever be sick. But I mean, I know that the temperature on this was well below or well above where it needed to be because it's boiling, so I know I'm above the 165. So I know I'm okay, but yeah, I think it's always best to just err, yeah, on the side of caution for sure. Yeah.
Substitute chicken breast for the thigh?
Any substitutes for the recipe, you mean? Would you have to?
Chicken breast instead of the thigh.
Yeah, you can definitely use the breast. You could use any cut of meat in this particular dish. I think because there's so much fat from the bacon and such, you may or may not want the skin on the chicken breast. If it was on the bone or maybe it's skinless, you could just kind of modify. Just be aware that you're going to have more fat from the chicken skin if you leave it on, but you could use it either way. You could do thighs, you could do whole cuts of meat with the bone in or bone out. I just chose the skinless chicken thighs because they cook up really well this particular dish. But you could do either one, yeah. Is there another question? Yeah.
If you don't have time to make your own chicken stock,
Yeah.
do you have a brand that you like?
I like the ones that have low sodium just because I'd rather control the amount of salt than let Swanson or someone else do it. And I like the bone broths that are out there because I like the flavor, but you don't need a bone broth always. For something like this, I just need liquid, right? I just need some kind of a liquid to deglaze the pan, but I want it to be a flavorful liquid, of course. But yeah, I mean, Swanson's fine. I mean, a lot of them out there are pretty good, but I try to find the low sodium ones. Yeah, there's College Inn, I think is another brand. They have another one that's pretty good. Yeah, yeah. No. No, you don't have to use butter. You don't have to use cream. You can make it totally non-dairy. Yeah. I wish I would have known that before I threw my butter in. I'm sorry. Yes, yes. But yeah, you could stay away from it altogether. Okay, we're going to work on plating here just a moment. Any other questions on the chicken? Yeah. Yes, please. Yes. Yes, you can. I always use drink the good stuff, cook with the cheap stuff, so, keep that in mind. And I would, probably a white wine, probably like a Sauvignon Blanc or a Chardonnay, something like that. Yeah, and I have some of the little tiny cheap, I think they're Barefoot wines I even have in my cupboard, and I'll pull one of those out from time to time if I just need a little flavor of that wine. But yeah, cook with the cheap stuff. Yeah, yeah. Another question? Anyone? Okay. All right, so for garnish on this particular dish, as I said, I've got lots of different options. I'm going to go ahead and serve it right in the skillet, even though it's not a pretty skillet. We're just going to serve it in there today. But I can go ahead and add a few garnishes to it. So I've got some of the thyme sprigs in there already. I think I'm going to add in a little bit of green onion, too, for a little bit more color. And also just for some of that flavor. So I'm just going to keep these all bound together. I did rinse the tops of them off earlier. I'm going to slice them on a bias, just on an angle. They just look nice that way. And since it's a garnish, it should look good. And then I'm just going to give that a nice hearty little. And I will just give it a little toss so that they're not sitting up there without anything on them. Okay. Okay. All right, any other questions? No? Yeah.
What is the difference between when you're making soups and stuff between using chicken stock or chicken broth?
Okay, good question. So broth technically should have came from the full animal, would have meat in it, muscle as well, has been boiled down. When you're dealing with stock, it's just the bone. That's truly the difference. So it depends on what you're using it for. Stock should be less expensive because it's less of the animals involved. You can make stocks at home really easy though. You can, traditionally it's carrot, celery, onion is kind of the three that you're gonna use, and then some bone that you would have. But you could use a vegetable stock. For something like this, you could use vegetable stock and probably nobody would know the difference between chicken stock and vegetable stock because I've got chicken in here already, right? So I could probably omit the expense of a chicken stock and just use vegetable. But yeah, that's truly the difference, yeah.
If you have someone who really doesn't like or tolerate
Garlic,
garlic. I love garlic,
okay.
but I don't cook with it because too much of it, she'll be upset.
Oh, yeah. How are shallots, could you tolerate shallots?
Yes.
I would use a shallot then because a shallot has some of that flavor profile of a garlic without the garlic. So you could use a shallot in place of it, and that'll kind of give you that same kind of feel of it a little bit, if you will, the vibe of a garlic without it. Yeah. And maybe have you tried different, like the fresh versus the minced versus the paste? Does it all seem to bother you? Okay, then don't try it anymore.
I'm up all night long.
Oh yeah, that's not worth it. Yeah, try a shallot then. Try shallots in place of it. Yeah, and if that works for you, then there you go. You'll get some of that flavor still. Yeah.
I'm too sensitive to garlic
Okay.
and onions, but I find that I eat the garlic-infused olive oil
Oh,
or the shallot-infused olive oil.
does that work?
I can tolerate very
That's a great suggestion. Yeah. See if that works. Anybody else have any suggestions for that? That's a great one. No? Okay. All right. So for this particular dish, as I said, we're going to serve it. I'm just going to leave it right in the skillet. And I'm going to just put the right on the board here. Like that. There we go. And I can just move this out of the way. And then we have our natilla for dessert. There we go. I'm not sure how many people we are, but I think we have enough. We're good. I made 80, so I think we're good. All right. Any last questions? Let me flip through here. Yeah. Go to GFS. We have a GFS in your local area, like the retail store. They have decent knives. This one might be $30. They're not going to hold an edge forever, but it's $30. So they're kind of a disposable, but they're really good for that. And they have a nice, they're easy. I hate to tell people to go spend a lot on a knife because as long as it's sharp and you're not cutting yourself and it's sharp enough to cut through things, that's all you need, right? So some people will go out and spend so much on these knives and it just feels like it's a waste of money and resources. So I don't really suggest that very often. So any other questions, thoughts? Well, so we've kind of journeyed across America today, right? All the way from the Rocky Mountains to the Great Plains and down to the Southwest. So if you'd like to have a bite, I'm going to set up some silverware up here, have some utensils and things, and feel free to come up and sample a couple things, okay? Thank you so much. We're going to be back again August 12th. So come back on July 9th and August 12th. Come back and see me, okay?